position that the prosecution has opened the door relating to certain evidence of Mr. Lyoya's prior bad acts. We believe that the prosecutor in his opening statement told the jury that Patrick never intended to harm anybody. In addition, the prosecutors elicited testimony that from the most recent witness that Patrick didn't intend to use the taser against Officer Schurr. The court has previously ruled that state of mind is not relevant and therefore evidence relating to his state of mind that should not come in. We believe that the prosecutors opened the door. We ask the court to reconsider that. Thank you.
Becker, would you like to
Hey, just say I don't think there's any door opening to go here, Your Honor. They just want to drag the victim through the mud and talk about all his other prior acts, and I don't think that's relevant. The court's already ruled on that, and we've asked that the court stay with that ruling.
And I do not believe that anything that's happened has risen to the level of making me revisit my prior ruling, so that prior ruling stands that the alleged victim's state of mind is not relevant in this proceeding. Is there anything else, Mr. Ford, we have a defendant before the jurors come in?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have them come back in and resume with testimony.
So when you give a little bit better description, so when you look out your front door, do you see them running or are they struggling? What exactly were they doing?
They were like running across the yard, like between my yard and like the yard next door.
Right. So what do you do upon seeing that?
I'm thinking it's just kind of like their own issue, whatever. So I didn't think it was that big of a deal. So I kind of walked away and whatnot. And then I didn't come back until I heard like a gunshot. So I checked the front window. And when I checked the front window, that's when I saw the officer kind of standing over Patrick. But Patrick was just laying down, I guess, already.
So when you see him running, you don't go out, you don't look any further?
No, not that I recall. I just went back to my bedroom. I think I was laying down for a second, and then I went back out after the gunshot.
So what, did you hear anything going on outside your house?
No, I didn't hear anything until my dog started barking until I opened the door. So I opened my main door, but the screen door is still there, so it's locked, so I can't really hear anything.
So you didn't hear anything going on outside? You didn't hear any talking between the two or anything along those lines?
No, I didn't.
When you went back inside, even after that, when you went back further inside, what did you hear when you went further inside?
After I left the first time,
Correct.
nothing really. Nothing until I heard the gunshot, and then that's when I went and checked the window. So.
Okay. So you heard a gunshot. So you didn't hear any talking, anything outside. Next thing you heard was a gunshot.
Yeah, yeah.
And you went to check your window, and what did you see?
I saw the officer standing over Patrick. He was still kind of like standing with his gun or whatever. Patrick was already laid down, so.
Did you do anything at that point in time?
At that point,
Yeah.
I mean, I just kind of looked. It was a little shocked, and I just kind of walked away, really.
You never called 911. You did anything beyond that?
So,
Did you ever hear anything about a taser or anything at any point in time?
I mean, I heard something about a taser in the videos and whatnot after they posted on social media that it was possibly a taser, but
You didn't hear
I
at the
wasn't
time.
at the time, I don't remember. Like I said, I wouldn't remember a taser or not. So long ago.
So it's been 3 years, so you kind of forgot because you
Yeah.
remember testifying before. You remember testifying at prior hearing, said you heard something about a taser when you were standing inside your house.
Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. I don't know. So
All right, but you don't remember at this point in time.
no.
Okay, I have nothing further, Your Honor. I have no questions, Your Honor.
I don't see any hands raised on the jury. May this witness be excused?
You may, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And they find the next witness.
Hold that match, sir.
Good afternoon. And before you take proceedings, please raise your right hand. My clerk will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Becker.
Sir, could you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Yes, first name is Zachary, Z-A-C-H-A-R-Y. Last is Bachelor, B-A-T-C-H-E-L-O-R.
And what do you do for a living?
I am employed as a detective sergeant with the Michigan State Police Audio and Video Analysis Unit.
And what are your responsibilities with the Michigan State Police Audio and Visual Analysis Unit?
So with the Audio Video Analysis Unit, I typically deal with anything pertaining to video or audio. Through the course of my employment with them, I started in this unit back in 2020, where I had to obtain a certain level of training through LEVA, Law Enforcement and Emergency Services Video Association, where I became a technician, went through their first 3 core courses, and while currently employed with the state, I do export video off of DVR systems. I will attempt to clarify video images. I will create images from video. I will create timelines of video, or if there's multiple sources, I will put them into one video file. And I will do some audio clarification work.
Okay. Now, you talked a little bit about your background in terms of, you talked about LEVA. Can you go a little bit more in depth of what is this LEVA training? What is it, and what did you have to go through?
Yeah, so through LEVA, the first 2 courses, each are individual courses. They are a full 40 hours, where you do learn basics of like video enhancement, video work, how to export, and different techniques of video work. And after you complete those the first 2 levels, after you take a test and a practical, then you become certified as a technician through that organization.
Okay. In terms of you have to pass a test to become certified, if you will?
Yes.
What sort of test is that?
There's a practical exam and there is a multiple answer question type exam.
And when were you officially certified through LEVA?
That was the early part of 2021.
So in terms of getting certified, after you get certified, what do your duties entail working for the state police? How do you get cases? Could you describe a little bit better for the jury what you do?
So as my employment through the state police and with this, I've done approximately 600 cases or just over 600 cases to date through the state police as my employment with this unit. And typically what happens, we will be contacted by a officer in charge of a particular investigation, and then they will ask us for assistance, whether it's like clarification of a particular individual on the video, whether it's a timeline that they're putting together for a courtroom demonstrative, if they need help exporting video, but usually we'll always start with the officer or a person involved in the investigation will contact us.
And if they contact you, what do you do then?
I will get the video from them, and then I will then start my process.
Okay. And so does it depend on what they're looking for in each case? Each case is a little bit different in what they're looking for in the video or audio stuff, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, you passed your certification in 2021. Do you do anything to keep up to date? I mean, videos and technology changes. Do you do anything to keep up to date, any additional training since 2021?
Yes, every 3 years through LEVA, we have to have approximately 80 hours of continuing education credits, just additional trainings that's pertinent to the field of audio and video. And at that point, we have to update our curriculum vitae and along with the certificates, and that those have to be submitted to LEVA so that our technician certification can then be brought back into good standing every 3 years.
And you maintain that?
Yes, I have.
And you still maintain a certification with LEVA?
Yes, I
even
have.
at this day?
Correct.
Do you do any teaching yourself?
Yes, I will do some teaching at our word I'm looking for, our like training lab, I guess you could say, where we have multiple DVR systems in our training lab where we will teach investigators how to export video off of those systems.
And how many times have you done that?
I believe with this unit twice, I want to say, if I recall correctly.
And you testified before as an expert in video technology and as a certified video technician.
Yes, I have.
How many times have you done that?
I've testified, I want to say 5 or 6 times, and I've been qualified as an expert 1 time.
And this time I'd like to qualify as an expert as a certified video technician to do with audio visual equipment, Your Honor.
No objection to the qualification, Your Honor?
All right, then you shall be considered.
So obviously you dealt with some videos in this case.
Correct.
Could you tell the jury how you got involved? What exactly took place?
So my supervisor, Mr. Wade Dakin, contacted me and advised that I was to take on this case, at which time he was provided a cell phone video, which he forwarded to me. And then I was forwarded a link via email to download a body-worn camera video and a dash cam video.
So in terms of when you get those, you're downloading other videos that are sent to you, what do you do with them when you get them initially?
So what I will do is I will download those and I will hash those, and that applies a 32-digit mathematical type code. It's more or less a unique print to that video, so that I know that like later on, if we have questions, we can go back, hash it again, and those values should match. And if they don't, then we know something is changed somewhere in that video. So I'll get those, I'll download those, I will hash those videos, and then depending on my task, for instance, in this task, it was to take those video files, those 3 sources, and they requested me to synchronize those into one video file so they could all be viewed on one video. So at that point, I used a program called AMP5.
Okay, so before we get to that, let's go through the individual videos you got. Will you switch it to our side if you could, please? So I'm gonna just right now, so you can see it, you recognize this video.
Yes.
And what do you recognize this video as?
That I do recognize that as the passenger's cell phone.
So this is the cell phone video, the initial
Correct.
video you got.
This is exhibit one.
Exhibit 1, correct. And then we just switch, since we've seen this a couple times. I'll show you now People's Exhibit 2. You recognize this?
Yes.
What do you recognize this as?
This is the dash camera video that I downloaded.
So the dash cam video from the car that was involved in this incident.
Correct.
We haven't seen the full, so we'll play that, Your Honor. Again, please. I'm gonna stop right here real quick. You don't hear any sound for the first part of that. Can you explain to the jury why that might be?
It's my understanding, there's a lag between when the lights are initiated, and that's when the audio would kick on.
So there's just a little bit of a difference in terms of when you can see it, but you can't hear it until the audio kicks on later.
I'm not 100% sure on how their system is set up, but I believe even with our camera systems that there's a delay from when it kicks on.
Hey, stay in the car! Stay in the car!
Nelson and Grace. 25, George Jackson, one more. 1625, 10-4, Jackson, one more.
So that was the in-car video that you initially, that was the second thing you got in this case?
So after watching that, because it was a short in duration, that wouldn't have been the entire dash cam that I would have received at the very beginning. That would have been a shortened version where I had just brought it down more to the time of interest. I believe that was when the passenger was being ordered back by officers arriving on scene is when I stopped that, just to be more concise with
So this is the
the
edited
synchronized.
portion after you got a longer video that
Correct,
goes a little bit beyond what we see here.
correct.
Now I'm gonna show, this is exhibit 3 now. You recognize exhibit 3 here?
Yes, as the body worn camera.
So this is, when you say body worn camera, this is a camera that's actually on the officer when it records.
Correct.
Play this since we haven't seen this either.
Nelson, North of Graves, Edward King Hall, 9367. Hey, stay in the car! Stay in the car! Stay in the car! Get in the car! Dude, I'm stopping you. You have a license? Do you have a license?
What?
I'm stopping you. Do you have a license?
What the?
Do you have a driver's license? Do you speak English?
Yes.
Can I see your license?
What do you want?
The plate doesn't belong on this car. Do you have a license or no? Do you have a driver's license?
Yes.
Where is it at?
It's in the car.
Get it for me.
What do you want?
The plate does not belong on this car.
Okay. Nothing on that, my life. Right there.
No, no, no. Stop, stop. Put your hands up. Stop. 1950. Got one running. North, south. Stop. Stop.
Okay.
Stop. Stop. Get your hands behind your back, okay? Hands behind your back, okay? Get your hands behind your back. $19.50, 34 cars. Stop! Stop resisting! Let go of the taser! Let go of the taser!
Now, in terms of this, you talk about you kind of edited the body cam video. Did you do any editing of this, or just the body cam essentially turn off at this point in time?
No, I did not do any a shortening of the body cam
So
footage.
for whatever reason, the body cam turned off at this portion of the incident.
That's correct.
And you didn't have anything more to show out of the body cam.
No.
Now, you talked a little bit about putting these things together. What did you do for that?
So in this particular request, I used AMP5, and there's a filter called multi-view, and I can create anywhere from, I believe I can go up to 4, 5, 6 across and 4, 5 down. But in this case, because there was only 3 videos, I did a multi-view of a 2x2, and then I used the software to bring those 3 sources into that filter to create. I believe it was body cam up top, dash cam on the bottom, and upper right was the cell phone video.
Now, in terms of when you say, what is AMP5? Can you give maybe a little
AMP5
description?
is a software that we use that allows us to do some enhancements.
Your Honor. Maybe take down Schurr up. Did not realize it was up there, yeah? I'll stop right here.
It allows us to do, to where I can create views like that. I can export a sequential images, which in video, each frame is in essence like its own like image. So I can tell it to go from A to B and export them all out. There are some enhancement features, clarification features in this particular request. I did export out multiple variations to this, because in this software I can only utilize one audio source at a time. And then I've also created with just the body cam and the cell phone video side by side, minus the dash cam.
So specifically, this is Exhibit 4 now, and this contains which videos are in this one?
This is a body cam, the dash cam, and I believe the cell phone will come up. The one, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, now, if you could, when you talk about it, how do you sync it, if you will? They're all showing at the same time. Can you describe how you make it so they're all at the same time?
There's multiple ways to do that. Like in this instance with the dash cam and the body cam, I used the encoded date and time on it. So I started them at the same point. And then when we got to when the cell phone was coming on, I attempted to find a sync point. You can use audio for that. You can look at events. I believe in one of them I used, once those two were synced on the left, it observed where it looked like a knee was coming off the ground in the cell phone and in one of those videos. So I was able to sync. It might not be 100%, but it's close. But the best viewing option outside of this is to watch those on their own. Would be the best, but for courtroom demonstrative, that's why we do these multi-views like this.
Why do you say it's best to do it watching each on their own? Why is that?
Because they would be full size, and like you get the actual video versus it going into these multi-views. It can kind of shrink them down slightly so that they can fit on the screen.
Right. But in terms of shrinking them down, it doesn't change the video necessarily. It doesn't do anything to the video. It's still the same video. It just makes it smaller.
Correct.
Now I'm going to play Exhibit 4, Your Honor.
All right.
Nelson, North of Grace, all 9367. Hey, stay in the car! Stay in the car! Stay in the car! Get in the car! Dude, I'm stopping you. You have a license? Do you have a license?
What?
I'm stopping you. Do you have a license?
What up?
Do you have a driver's license? Do you speak English?
Yes.
Can I see your license?
What up, man?
The plate doesn't belong on this car. Do you have a license or no? Do you have a driver's license?
Yes.
Where is it at?
He's in the car.
Get it for me.
What up, man?
The plate does not belong on this car.
I'm not gonna let my life out of you. Right there.
No, no, no. Stop, stop. Put your hands up. Stop. 1950. Get over on it. Go fast. Stop. Stop.
Okay.
Stop. Stop.
Okay.
Get your hands behind your back. Hands behind your back. Get your hands behind your back. $19.50. Start with more card. Stop. Stop resisting. Let go of the taser. Let go of the taser.
Now, in terms of this, which audio were you using for this specific video?
I was using the body cam audio for that.
Any particular reason you chose the body cam audio?
When I was asked for this request, I did something similar. I did just the body cam, and then on a different video, I did just the cell phone, and then on a different one, I synced them both together using a second program, Adobe Premiere Pro, where I was able to export the cell phone audio as its own audio file, loaded this video I loaded this video into Adobe Premiere Pro, where I was able, as soon as the cell phone video activated, I then aligned the audio for that particular cell phone, and then exported that out as a viewable MP4.
But in this specific one, it was just the body cam video, the audio.
That's correct.
Now, we can go now, you talk about, this is gonna be exhibit 5, Your Honor, I believe. Exhibit 5. So kind of before we get into it, when you talk about sequential, could you explain to the jury what the sequential images is? What is that? What does that do?
So when you do sequential images, it in essence churns video into just a long strain of individual images, basically in essence creating a flip book, if you will. I initially was asked to slow down the video, which I would not do, because when you slow down video, it changes the perception of what actually took place. So I provided this per their request, I provided them in the sequential images.
So you talk about sequential images, and we'll start going through it right now. This is the initial body cam, just from the body cam. This isn't a multi-view, this is just from the body cam.
Correct. And down there on the bottom, that would be the frame number pertaining to the frame number in the video.
So this is just like you say, it's like the flip book you used to do with your kids.
Correct.
How are you able to get each frame? You know, you got 3202, 3204. Can you describe for the jury how you're able to do that in a digital type of?
So I'm able to do that using software AMP5. There's a filter called Sequence Writer, which at that point, when I open and apply that filter, I can then put in a particular frame number for it to start and end, and then I can export those out as a BMP image, a bitmap image, into a folder.
So in terms of when you say a bitmap image, this is just, that image is each one of these.
Correct. This would be, if you were to watch the video, in that video, all these images are in that video.
How did you come up with this section, if you will? Why this section?
It was provided to me by the investigator as his request.
So when you talk to the investigator, you're talking about Detective Tuber.
Yes.
And that's where it kind of stops there. You didn't do the whole incident for this entire thing, did you? You weren't able to do a sequential image from the start to finish.
No, there were multiple sections. I was given a section at one point, and then a few months later, I was asked to do more.
So this exhibit specifically the body cam. We go down to exhibit 6 now. You specifically looked at the cell phone as well?
Yes.
Get through this. Is there any difference in terms of the cell phone versus the body cam when you do these sequential?
No, it's the same process.
It doesn't depend on, you know, in-car video is different than a cell phone video.
No.
Go through this. And once again, how did you decide this section? Was this in conjunction with Detective Tuber as well?
Yes.
One thing, there's no sound here. Are you able to do this with sound?
No, not exporting images.
I'm going to stop a little bit here. Now we've got kind of an orange box that appears. Can you tell the jury what we're looking at here now?
So this is a filter you can apply called Magnify, and that is magnified at 200%, so it's just double. And kind of the process with that is you draw the box, tell it the area that you wish for it to magnify, and then it can be pulled off the side, and then that box can be applied just so that it shows that area of focus.
Does it change anything? Does it change the video? Does it change anything about what you're doing when you magnify it at all?
Yes, when you magnify, you are in essence changing. It will enlarge, but it has to make up for those areas that aren't there anymore, which is a interpolation, as they call it. but that's the end result.
I think you should have a laser pointer up there. Let's see. Yeah, got it. Now, what is this arrow? Why are you seeing this arrow somewhere?
There's some changing in some pixels there, and that was just after the shot was heard,
Okay, in terms of changing the pictures, would that be the casing, if you will?
possibly.
So essentially, that's the moment the shot was fired would be right about here.
Or around that time, yes.
There's one more of the sequential photographs you did. This would be exhibit 7 now. This is exhibit 7. So what sequential range are we doing here?
So that this was just a request of, call right prior to the body cam turning off was the request.
So that's where it stops there, and that's approximately when the body cam turned off.
If I recall correctly. Or I had that may have been the one over the struggle for the taser, because it was still on at that point.
But that would be the body cam video and the cell phone video.
Correct.
Take that off. One more, Your Honor. I have nothing for you, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Detective Batchelor.
Good afternoon, sir.
My name's Matt Borgula. I represent Christopher Schurr. All right, so I just had a few questions for you. You testified about the timing of when the sound comes on. And I want to clear that up a little bit. You've reviewed a lot of dash cams.
It's been a few.
Yeah, I mean, your job is a forensic examiner of videos, right?
Correct.
Okay. And, you know, there's a lot of body cams too, right?
There is, yes.
And so in your experience, the dash cams and the body cams, they're always on, right?
I don't,
Well, if the officer's out and about, they're recording, but they're not just saving everything, right? And if you don't know the answer to this, then.
yeah, I don't know the timing before. I know, if I'm not mistaken, that there's a lag to where if it's activated, I believe there might be like a prior storage in essence, but I'm not.
Would we be better asking someone who is familiar with the body cams and the dash cams from GRPD?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not gonna ask you about something you don't know about. Okay, so you, I think you said you shortened one of the videos, and that was the dash cam, right?
At one point, yes.
Okay. So there's more to that video than what was displayed before the jury, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it involves the officers that show up later?
And all the additional responding personnel.
Okay. And now you talked about how you took your, the videos and you broke it down into sequential images.
Correct.
And you mentioned something about how you don't want to do slow motion because that doesn't reflect what actually happened in real time.
Correct.
Wasn't that slow motion just like a flip book, just one at a time?
It could possibly be that.
So that's not real time either. That's just broken down into each frame.
Correct.
Okay. And there's nothing wrong with slowing it down, right? You're just saying that's not how fast it took, right?
There are instances where it may be more appropriate than others.
Okay. Did somebody ask you to do the sequential images?
Yes.
Okay. All right, now, do you know what a relative frame number is?
Yes.
Okay. When you did your sync video, the one with the 3 cameras, did you do a relative frame number on your video?
I did. Well, I provided, and I believe it was after the prelim, it was brought up that there were some frame numbers on the videos, which I did not do on the initial round, but I put frame numbers on my later portions.
Okay, and the ones we
Those
just
were-
saw doesn't have those?
Just, no.
Okay, all right. So there's no way to refer to them by relative frame number?
Correct.
All right.
Based on those videos, correct.
The sequential videos that are part of the exhibit, how many actual pictures are there?
I'd have to look in my report or count them.
Is it more than 100?
Yes, there was a lot.
Is it thousands?
Yes, I want to say it was over 1,000
Okay,
cumulatively. It was a lot.
all right. And, you know, the body cam goes off. You don't know anything about why the body cam would have gone off either, do you?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just on, in terms of the slow motion use, I thought your initial testimony was slow motion, you didn't want to do slow motion because that's not appropriate.
That's correct, because it's still, because if I put a video in slow motion, while it's in action, it slows down what the actual video was.
Okay. But then you said sometimes you thought it would be appropriate, that's what I thought I heard you say on cross-exam. I'm not quite sure if I understand.
At times, there could be an instance where it might be appropriate to do so.
But in your view, this time was not.
Correct.
And why not specifically in this instance?
Because this is a use of force case, and slowing down and changing the perception of what's happening could be detrimental to the court.
All right, thank you.
Can I follow up on that? Yes. All right, so I guess I don't understand the difference between slow-mo and then taking 1,000 images and doing it consecutively, so it goes frame by frame by frame by frame. Isn't that what slow-mo is?
No, I would say that a slow-mo is it playing in a video, but at a slower rate than what it was intended to play. Whereas a sequential image is just an image that can be looked at individually, which are the frames, individual
And the
frames.
concern is you want whoever watches the video to see how the actual speed in which things took place.
Correct,
Okay. Because that was the perception of the people that were there.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
And I don't see hands raised on the jury. May this witness be excused?
You may, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. And you may call your next witness, Mr. Becker.
Call Jessica Beaudry.
Hello. And before you take your seat, if you can please raise your right hand, my clerk can swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Whenever you're ready.
And could you state your name and spell for the record, please?
Jessica Beaudry, Beaudry.
And could you tell the jury what you do for a living?
I'm a crime scene technician with the City of Grand Rapids at the Grand Rapids Police Department.
And what are your responsibilities as a crime scene technician?
As a crime scene technician, we respond to all sorts of calls. We take photographs of evidence, collect evidence, assist officers in any way that's needed.
I'd like to take you back to April 4th of 2022. Did you get called in to take photographs of an incident that occurred with a Grand Rapids police officer?
Yes, I did.
Could you tell the jury exactly where did you go and what did you do?
On that day, I was requested to go to the training unit, which is on the 3rd floor of the police department. I was requested to take photographs of Officer Schurr.
And that was due because he was involved in an officer-involved shooting?
Yes, sir.
And just to be clear, this officer that you took pictures of on that date, do you see him here in the court today?
Yes, I do.
Could you point him out and describe something he's wearing?
He's sitting over there. He's got a navy blue suit on.
Let the record reflect you identify the defendant, Your Honor.
Yes, the record shall reflect that.
Now, what is the purpose of you taking pictures?
Anytime one of our officers is involved in some sort of incident, we like to take photographs to show their overall appearance, what their clothing may look like, any of their items that may be moved or misplaced.
And that was your purpose to do it on the morning of April 4th?
The 22nd?
The 22nd? Of April 22.
Oh,
April
yes.
2022. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but you took pictures in the training room right after this incident happened?
Yes, sir.
And part of it is to kind of accurately give a depiction of what that officer looked like after this incident?
That is correct.
Okay. Put up now exhibit what you marked as exhibit 13. And do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And what is this a picture of?
This is a photograph that I took of Officer Schurr.
Can you dim lights, please?
That hasn't been admitted.
In terms of, that's, I could ask for admission now, Your Honor.
Okay, because it's been published already. So.
Well, this is a picture that you took and you recognize this picture?
Yes, I do.
We have no objection, Your Honor.
Okay, to its admission?
Correct.
Okay, then 13 is now admitted.
And there's a series of photographs, exactly, it would be 13 through 21 that are the photos you took. You took a number of photos like this on that day.
Yes, I took multiple photographs.
And those are all accurate depictions of what the officer looked like, his clothing and so forth after this incident occurred.
That'd be correct.
All right, just for purposes, I move for the admission of exhibits 13 through 21 then.
So 13 is admitted, but any objection to 14 through 21 being admitted at this time?
One moment, I just gotta look at them real quick.
Okay.
We have no objection, Your Honor.
All right, then 14 through 21, those exhibits are now admitted.
Now, in terms of that, did you start with, is this one you start with essentially? Is that how you go through your process, if you will?
Yeah, we just usually start with a profile shot and photograph from there.
So now we'll go to exhibit 14. And you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And this is, can you describe exhibit 14?
This is a photograph of the entire front of the uniform.
Exhibit 15, what are we looking at here for the record?
A side profile
Which side are we looking at?
is left.
To be clear for the record, yeah.
Sorry.
We can all see it, but. Now exhibit 16,
The right profile
exhibit 17,
in the back.
exhibit 18,
Those would be the tops of his hands.
exhibit 19.
That would be his right wrist.
Now, especially why we have this, looks like kind of a rule around here, what is the purpose of that?
So when an officer is involved in an incident, we usually ask if they feel like they have any injuries because we want to document those. He did indicate to me that his right wrist felt sore, and when I examined it, it looked a little swollen, so I used the scale to highlight that and photograph it.
Where, there's a laser pointer up there. Okay, where is this? Can you show where the swollenness is?
To me, it appeared red in this general area and slightly swollen.
The exhibit 20, what are we looking at here?
That would be the inside of his hands, the palms,
And finally, exhibit 21, what are we looking at here?
the left side of his face.
Why do we take a close up to the left side of his face?
If you can see, and I'll use the laser pointer, there appeared to be some dirt and debris kind of here and here and here.
Okay, so there's just dirt and debris on there, so you want to get a close up view of that.
Yes, sir.
Now, we don't have a picture of, did you do anything with the duty belt, if you will?
Yes.
What is the duty belt? Can you just, what exactly is that?
So the officer's duty belt is what they wear around their waistband. It contains all of their equipment, like their handcuffs, their firearm, their taser, stuff like that. Anytime an officer discharges his firearm, we do what's referred to as a round count, and we also photograph all of those items. So in the presence of multiple officers, we would have performed that round count, photographed it, and photographed the duty belt and all the items that were either there or not there as well.
So everything was in order, if you will, in his duty belt?
No.
What was wrong with it?
The taser was missing. Obviously, the firearm was also missing at that time. But as far as its condition, it was good.
All right. Thank you. I have nothing for you, Your Honor.
Ms. Elton.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Or morning, afternoon.
Sorry.
So you took photos of Chris on the day of the incident?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and had you talked to Chris, or did you know Chris before the date of the incident?
Yes, I did.
And you talked to him that day?
I did.
Okay, did you notice anything about his demeanor that day when you talked to him?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Normally, Officer Schurr is outgoing, happy, kind of just overall excited to be at work, I would say. And during this, or after this incident, he was just quiet and didn't really speak very much.
Okay. And during your interaction with him, you photographed, and we saw some of the injuries that you had photographed. Was there anything in the photos that you haven't had a chance to explain about his injuries that you were aware of that day?
The overall photographs for me were more to show the mud and debris on the uniforms, and then on his hands as well, there appeared to be minor scratches.
And you mentioned that you conducted round counts.
Yes.
And you were present for that?
Yes.
And why do you conduct round counts?
It's the department's procedure to conduct a round count anytime a weapon is discharged, so that way we can account for the number of cartridges they should have, things like that.
And with the firearms, is it true that during high-stress situations, officers typically do not remember how many rounds are fired?
I believe that is true, yes.
And is that partially in part of kind of the rapidly evolving dynamic situations?
Jack, she's going way beyond what a crime scene tactic can testify to.
She talked about the round counts, and this is part of.
What was the question? I don't believe you finished it.
I was asking about kind of the purpose of doing the round counts. I don't remember exactly what I had said.
She started getting into why officers don't remember in terms of how many shots are fired, which is beyond what a crime scene tactic.
That would be beyond the scope, and I believe she answered that question that you just relayed to me. So you can just ask the next question.
Okay. You didn't examine Officer Schurr without his uniform on, right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure I'm clear in terms of, you can go back up there. You talk about, I thought the question was there's things you missed or you weren't able to talk about. You took a picture of his hands, right? There are injuries on his hands.
Yes.
And I'm going to show, this is Exhibit 18 again. So these are the injuries you saw on his hands.
Yes.
You didn't miss anything. There's no other, you weren't allowed to stop from taking any pictures or anything on his hands, right?
No, they are shown in the photographs. We just did not discuss.
Okay, that you didn't discuss it, but these are accurate to the injuries you saw.
Correct.
And even on, just to make sure, this is the one injury in Exhibit 19 that you kind of saw yourself.
That he had pointed out to me.
Gotcha. And there's, the palms, there's nothing on there.
Correct.
Just want to make sure that it wasn't like there was something you were missing or you didn't take any pictures of. I have nothing further.
Ms. Hamilton, anything else?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
I don't see any hands raised on the jury. May this witness be excused?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And Mr. Becker, you may call your next witness.
Can we take a little break, Your Honor? I think there's one thing, and kind of went ahead of schedule too. I think I got one witness I can't, but I just want to go on to the report once we get going here. We may want to bring up something with you, Your Honor, too.
Okay. All right, so we'll take a break. I'm not sure how long, maybe 15 minutes or so. It'll be our afternoon break, so we're going to take it now. It's a little early, but meanwhile, please remember to leave your notes upside down in your chairs and that you're not to discuss the case with each other or with anyone else, and no checking out social media or any media reports. And we'll see you back in a few minutes. All right, please. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Becker, your next witness will be.
Well, it's going to be Detective Two, and I guess going to what the defense brought up before, the court, after I listened to the court's ruling, there's a little bit of confusion here, because I think, the victim's intent is part of this case, and we have talked about it. And I think the ruling the court had earlier was that you couldn't just bring up every conviction, every bad thing the victim's ever done to show that it is, that's why he did what he did. We don't know why he did what he did. And so I think, and so I just want clarification that, the detective can testify, but I don't think that opens the door for them to bring up every single conviction the victim had to kind of show, we don't know why he did. So the ruling seemed to be a little bit broader than I understood it initially, and so I just wanted clarification because this Detective Tugran is my next witness, and the court's gonna let him get into it. I guess it's probably a good time to get a full ruling.
Well, I was saying that his state of mind isn't relevant to the case. I'm not sure, because I'm obviously not privy to all of the facts as you and
Sure.
this team are, so I'm not sure what testimony you're attempting or intending to elicit from a detective that you're concerned about.
I'm not too, but I think the defense wanted to get into bringing up his, arrest warrants that were out there, his prior drunk drivings and everything else. And I don't think that's relevant,
Right.
but I also think the intent of the victim, based on all the facts that we do know, and based on the totality of circumstances, is part of the case. So your ruling was broader than I thought it was before. So I'm gonna.
Well, how do you get into what his intent was without them being able to say that maybe he was intending this because of these other?
Based on what watching the video, watching the facts that we do know. I mean, there's plenty of facts we do know, but we have no idea that he was even thinking about his prior arrest record. They want to bring up a domestic violence. And so part of our ruling, our motion before that was, that is, it doesn't come in because even if, there may be some probative value, but the probative value is outweighed by the prejudicial effect. We have no idea what was going through his mind, but they can argue all they want in terms of, and what Michaela essentially argued during the whole incident was that, he was in fear for his life. The defendant was in fear for his life because of the activities of the victim at the time. So you can argue based on the facts that are in evidence of what the intent of the victim is, but to bring in stuff we have no idea about in terms of the domestic violence, that was to keep that out. And so they want to bring that in, and so I'm about to call Detective Tubergen, and I think it still should be kept out. But I want to bring that up because I thought the court's ruling was a little bit ambiguous, and so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay. Mr. Lyoya?
Thank you, Your Honor, and I know the court's heard these arguments before, but the reason we want to bring in things that might have affected Mr. Lyoya's state of mind is because the prosecution in its opening said that Mr. Lyoya didn't intend to harm anybody by doing what he did. That his purpose and what he was doing, whatever we see on the screen, they've argued now and they've elicited testimony about what was in his head. And so we want to be able to explore that maybe it wasn't some innocent explanation for why he was fighting. And we think that the fact that he's got open warrants, he's on probation, he knows he's in trouble, is what we want to argue on. If they get to argue that he's a pacifist, we get to argue that he's not. And if they get to put on evidence that he's being innocent, he doesn't actually want to hurt anybody, we get to put on evidence that he does want to hurt somebody. And so we're just asking for the opportunity to address the prosecution's arguments that he made in opening during the course of the case.
Right, but I wonder how do you rebut that with prior bad acts?
Oh,
For
yeah.
example, domestic violence, because obviously domestic violence is not pertinent in this situation, right?
Certainly his propensity for violence would be pertinent. They're saying he's not going to harm anybody, and that he took the taser from the officer for some reason other than to use it on him. And so I think his prior conduct goes to his intent, which is what they're arguing. They're trying to say he didn't intend to do anything. We want to argue the opposite, Your Honor, and we want to put on evidence to support that argument.
All right, Mr. Becker?
But the whole basis, they don't have no idea why he did what he did. That's the thing. The intent is based on what happened in the scene. They can watch that. This is just trying to drag him through the mud in terms of throwing all these prior convictions. And it's not, my argument is based on the facts that we know at the time. You can't just drag in every bad thing this person's ever done and say, well, he could have.
Well, there's something in between everything he's ever done and whatever they're trying to, or whatever testimony they're attempting to elicit.
And we talked about that. We talked about he was drunk driving, he was, didn't have a driver's license. There's plenty of reason you can argue about what that is, but we have no idea if he was even thinking. He didn't even know. We talked earlier in the ruling is that he had no idea that there may have been a domestic violence warrant out for him. So that's the difference in terms of what was inside his mind. They can argue all they want about why he wanted to do things based on the facts that are in evidence, not dredging up bad acts that were not properly filed under 404B.
And again, I'm not as familiar, so there was apparently a domestic violence warrant.
Can I just, we're not trying to get into prior convictions. There's a lot of them from years ago. What matters, what's active that morning, what's in his mind. 3 days prior, aggravated domestic violence out of Wyoming Police Department. Victim transported by ambulance. Active warrant.
Well, I guess what.
2022, Kent County Prosecutor's Office issued a summons, failure to stop at scene of property damage accident. That was active.
Right, but what date?
These were all active.
Right, so usually when the prosecutors issue a warrant, they don't call up a suspect or a defendant and say, hey, we're getting ready to do a warrant on you. So I don't know how you get in evidence that the alleged victim knew that there were these warrants. And furthermore, I don't know how the warrant shows any propensity for bad acts any more than the warrant for your client shows that he's a murderer.
It's not to show bad acts, it's meant to show what the prosecution's arguing, he had no intention to cause any harm.
I mean, it's the same thing, right?
Well,
Because if you're using a warrant for someone's arrest to show that they intended to cause harm, again, it's a warrant. So there's no conviction, there's no proof beyond a reasonable doubt, there's not even any evidence that I'm aware of that he knew that he had this warrant, or these warrants.
I'm sorry, could I just read just these other active scenarios here?
Well, I don't know how they would be
Well,
relevant. Again, if you can say instead of like running through
Sure.
everything he's accused of.
It's not accusation, it's Allegan County Circuit Court bond, OWI third offense, bond condition, no alcohol, no driving. Henry County, Illinois, for aggravated DUI conviction, probation, not possess or consume alcohol.
Those aren't violent.
Right.
So again, intent to use, because Mr. Borgula just mentioned that he wants to be able to put on something to show that his intent may have been to take the taser and use it potentially against your client, but none of those that you just listed, even though I stopped you, have to do with an intent to harm someone.
Well, yeah.
And the fact that he had been drinking and driving was elicited, I believe, from a couple of witnesses.
Right, and I think it's twofold. One, Mr. Lyoya had several active warrants, probation, bond conditions that would indicate what he was doing that morning was unlawful and would show why maybe his intentions were different than what Mr. Becker has proposed. Secondly, there are several violent domestic violence conviction histories which could go to violence as well if the prosecutor brings up that his intentions wouldn't be to harm him. So, or as the first witness testified, he was a really good person. So that's why we're arguing the door's been open and we should be able to get into this.
Whether he's good or not is not relevant to this case.
But it was open, the door was open. So if a witness gets up and testifies, he's really a good person, normally that can be door opening if the person has things
If it was
out
the
there.
defendant, I would agree, but if it's an alleged victim, I don't know what law provides that. The character of an alleged victim is somehow relevant in a case where that victim is deceased.
I think opening the door to background for peacefulness, overall general good character, I think that opens the door to show contrary evidence on photo.
You know, the only thing I'd add is though that they have specific 404A2, character of alleged victim of a homicide. When self-defense is an issue, evidence of a trait or character for aggression of the alleged victim of crime offered by the accused to rebut the same, if it's known to the defendant. The defendant didn't know him. That's the key thing. It's got to be known. So they can get into character evidence if it's known to the defendant had no idea. This is the first time they met. So they can get into it, but this is not the case. And the fact that he's got all these warrants, just because he's got warrants out doesn't mean he knows what's going on. So, you know, what his intent is, they can argue the intent based on the facts that we see here. Where he had the taser. They can argue that he wanted to use the taser. I can argue that he didn't want to use the taser, but that's based on the facts and the evidence that are admitted and the jury sees, not dragging up every bad act that the defendant ever did and trying to drag him through the mud, and that's essentially what they're doing here.
Anything else?
We only bring it up back up at this juncture because we feel the door has been opened by the prosecution for the testimony elicited and the opening argument comments.
And I'm not sure how far Mr. Becker, you're attempting to go in this regard at all, or are you trying to go anywhere, you just don't want?
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not planning on getting into it, it's just that the defense brought this up, they want to do with Detective Tugrian, so I thought, you know, he's my next witness, so we're gonna clear this up beforehand, because then there was a question in my mind.
And I don't see where it would be relevant at this point. I don't believe that the door has been opened under 404. Because I do believe that it would need to be known to the defendant at the time, and apparently, I mean, there's no evidence that he was aware of it. I mean, suppose that could come up later, but so far it hasn't. So I believe it would be inappropriate to get into the defendant's criminal record with the next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Alright. Thank you. And then, I don't want to deprive you of a break. So, and they would have had a break already, and so I would.
Take a little break, because I think, really, we got Detective Tugrian, which I don't think will be too long, and Dr. Cole, but he's not gonna be here till 3. So we're gonna take a little break here, and then once, hopefully he'll get here, we can roll right through.
Okay, but the detective's here. Alright.
He is, you're right.
Okay, so it's 2:27 now, so what we'll do is we'll break for another, I'll say 10 minutes, and then, so we'll come back at 2:40.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, so meanwhile, we'll recess.
All rise, please.
just gave me some exhibits. Can you take a second real quick?
Okay.
I have nothing for else, Your Honor.
And anything from defense before the jurors return?
We were able to collect some defendant's proposed exhibits that we may be streamlined if we present these to the next witness. Is there any particular order? We have them a little bit out of order here. Do we need to be, start with defendant A, or can we just go with whatever letters are already labeled that?
Whatever letters you already have, okay, they should already be marked
Right.
before now, and they've already admitted,
Okay.
exhibits A through C, and then Q. So, yeah, they can just be whatever they're labeled. Anything else?
Nothing here.
No, thank you.
All right, we'll have the jurors come back.
All rise for the jury, please.
Come back, you may be seated. And Mr. Becker, you may call your next
Oh,
witness.
Detective Dugan.
Hello. And before you take your seat, if you please raise your right hand, my clerk will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Becker.
Sir, could you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Detective Sergeant Aaron Tubergen. That's Aaron and Tubergen.
And what agency are you Detective Sergeant with?
The Michigan State Police.
I'd like to take you back to April 4th of
2022. How did you get involved in this case? Maybe that's a kind of a broad question that you can go with. How did you get involved?
Yes, I was at home. I wasn't scheduled to work that day. I received a call from my supervisor, my detective lieutenant, who informed me briefly that there had been some sort of officer-involved shooting in the city of Grand Rapids, and he asked that I respond to the scene.
And did you respond to the scene?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any idea of what time you would have gotten there?
It would have been closer to 10 a.m., I believe.
As a detective, at that point in time, do you know you're going to be the lead detective, if you will, or was there other detectives there?
There were other detectives there, but I was formally assigned as the officer in charge. During a phone call, at some point during my drive over there, I knew I was going to be the lead investigator.
What are your sort of responsibilities as you get to the scene? What do you do?
Initially, we try to get the preliminary information, the gist of what happened, the size of our scene. We're looking to preserve physical evidence, digital evidence, witness information, and any other statements that might be pertinent to the case.
And obviously, you can't do it all your own on yourself. You had other people assisting you with giving witness statements and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Now, part of it, in terms of getting to the scene, you've had an opportunity to take a look at the people's exhibits 8, 9, and 10, correct?
I believe so. I'm not sure the numbering system at this point.
But in terms of these exhibits, you recognize those are photos that, did you take them or did somebody else take them?
Again, I have to see exactly which of those exhibits. I believe I took those photos.
All right, we'll bring you up here. This is probably digital. Oh, I forgot. The evidence. I'm going to show you Exhibit 8, 9, and 10. You recognize those now?
I do.
And what do you recognize those as?
It's a picture of the Nissan that's involved and also of the in-car computer from Officer Schurr's patrol car.
And in terms of that, these photos were taken on scene?
Yes.
Were these photos actually taken by you?
One of them was, another was by a trooper that I was working with.
But all of those accurately depict the vehicle and what you saw when you were on scene as well?
Yes.
I would move for the admission of Exhibits 8, 9, and 10, Your Honor.
Any objection?
Objection.
All right, then 8, 9, and 10 are now admitted.
And just so we can put it on the screen, please, you can switch it over to us, please. So we're looking at Exhibit 8 here. This is the car that was involved in the incident, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't move it, and nothing was done with this at this point in time. You just took a picture of it there.
Correct.
Now, what are we looking at here? Exhibit 9 for the record.
That's a rear image of the same vehicle to include the license plate.
Now, the license plate is kind of an important part of this case, if you will.
Yes, it is.
Why is that?
Because the Secretary of State registration information associated with that plate does not match the Nissan car.
Okay. And I'm going to go to Exhibit 10. Can you tell me what we're looking at here?
Yes. So upon arrival on scene, at one point I entered Officer Schurr's patrol vehicle. It was still in the same location that had been left. I noticed that his in-car computer, which most patrol cars have, was on and open at the time. And this is the screen that I observed. I'm familiar with a similar system that the state police used when I worked on the road and in a patrol car. And this is an access terminal for, among other databases, Secretary of State information. So when I saw this, I immediately recognized that the license plate on the Nissan had been run in the system, and then the record that came back, it even says year 2015 Ford Fiesta right on there.
Laser pointer, that may help.
Laser pointer, yeah, I'm pointing with my finger. So 2015 Ford Fiesta with a VIN that also did not match. And I'm not wearing my glasses, but the query that prompted all these responses is the license plate that I saw on the Nissan that was parked in front of the patrol car.
So this indicates to you that the license plate was run, showed up bad, and that led to the stop that we're talking about.
I believe so.
You can switch off our computer for right now. Now, in terms of other things that you did, and all these videos, were you responsible for obtaining the videos? Can you give the jury a little bit of background how you got the videos that we've seen up to this point in time?
One of our primary goals, one of my primary goals, was to preserve all the digital evidence involved on the scene. I would receive assistance from my partners in canvassing the area, looking for doorbell cameras, security cameras. We were aware that a body-worn camera and a dash camera were also involved. Early on, learned that the cell phone video may also exist. So I made efforts, either myself or through my partners, assigned them to preserve, locate, and obtain those videos.
So one of the things you talked about was a doorbell video. We haven't seen one yet. Were you able to find a doorbell or security camera video from a house in the area?
Yep, I was informed by one of my counterparts at GRPD, a detective, that they had obtained some short video files from a doorbell and security camera system from a residence across the street from where this happened.
And so did you go about to obtain that to make sure you had anything that actually showed what happened?
Yes, I requested those be sent to me, and I received those while I was still on scene.
And you've had an opportunity to review that, and that would be People's Exhibit 11 then?
Yes.
Alright. Now to go back to that, Chris. Before we get into it, it's kind of divided up into 3 separate films, if you will. Are there 3 different videos? Can you explain why it's like this?
I believe initially I received 17 separate clips. That extended long before the incident and also after the incident. A lot of the videos were overlapping, redundant to each other, but only a few actually captured really the main incident at hand here.
And so that was, you were able to break that down and capture those of what the incident, exactly what happened during the incident, if you will.
Yep, and I believe they had to be broken down to a suitable size to be shared even while they were on scene.
Because it was so large of a file.
Very.
I'm going to play now these parts of the Exhibit 11, Your Honor. Those three, there was some overlap. That was the best you could do in terms of trying to line this all up, if you will.
You're correct.
In terms of when you get to the evidence, part of what you do is seize things that are on site, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to show, this is marked as Exhibit 25. Show you what has been marked as Exhibit 25. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And what is this?
That is a Taser Model 7.
Okay. And what is this Taser Model 7? Why is it relevant to this case?
It was Officer Schurr's Taser, the center of this issue here.
Okay, so this was the actual Taser that was used in the incident that we've been seeing today.
Yes, it is.
What did you do with that? Why that was seized, obviously. What was done with it?
I observed it on scene when I arrived. It had not been moved by MSP prior to my arrival. It was clear during our preliminary investigation that possession of the Taser was the main issue. Not knowing what other evidence was going to come to light, we wanted to preserve that for fingerprints and touch DNA evidence. So our crime scene response team, which is also with Michigan State Police, responded, and they're the ones that actually physically seized that item, and it first went to our crime lab in Grand Rapids.
And that was to get the fingerprints and so forth?
It was.
At some point in time, do you kind of figure out that probably wasn't necessary to try and figure out what was the Taser?
Once we were able to get some more of the videos, it was clear. We would expect Mr. Lyoya's fingerprints and DNA to be on the Taser. So to expedite our investigative process, I requested to cancel the fingerprint and DNA analysis at our crime lab and download the information that is stored inside the Taser regarding the use.
And then what happened with that Taser? Where was it sent anywhere?
It was entered into our property. We have an evidence room that's secured at our work site. I requested one of my partners bring it back to the Grand Rapids Police Department where the information on the unit could be downloaded into a report. My partner facilitated that. We then took the device and we shipped it directly to the manufacturer to Axon for further analysis.
And so they could take a look at it and see if it was essentially operating correctly and take a further, more in-depth look to that, and as well as the body cam?
As well as the body cam, and to analyze the data. I'm not a Taser expert. I'm not able to interpret the information that comes off the machine, but they can.
And Axon is also the one that manufactures the body camera as well, is that correct?
In this case, yes.
So after getting kind of stuff on scene, you know, this is over a period, it just doesn't happen all in one day, correct?
No.
How long are you working on this case, gathering evidence, if you will?
It's hard to say. I've had some items of follow-up as long as years later, but the bulk of the investigation took place that month of April.
Now, part of that was also getting training records for the defendant, is that true?
Yes.
I believe these have all been entered into evidence, and I'm going to show you, just to make sure. By stipulation, these are all the stipulated items, Your Honor, I believe. I'm going to say Exhibit 24, Exhibit 30, Exhibit 31, Exhibit 32, Exhibit 33, and Exhibit 34. I believe those have all been stipulated to Your Honor in terms of.
Those have already been admitted.
Just for the jury's benefit, can you give the idea of what we're looking at here? What are these documents, if you will?
These are training records from the Grand Rapids Police Department.
Training records for who specifically?
Officer Schurr.
And how did you get these?
I got these via search warrant. I was able to obtain a search warrant and go directly to the Grand Rapids Police Department training unit and facilitate that search warrant and obtain these records that way.
Now, let's use Exhibit 24, for example. I think you have that in front of you.
I do.
Can you give it a little bit more of an idea in terms of the jury? It says 20-1. What does that mean? What are these records pertaining to specifically?
The 20, I believe, refers to the year. Again, I'm not a Grand Rapids police officer. I've not received training from their department. So some of these are generally apparent, and there's dates within these documents that this one is from 2020.
So 2020, and so what years are we covering here then, if you're talking about the training documents?
2020, 2021, 2022. There is a 2019 in here as well.
Okay. So it goes back a few years in terms of the records that they have in Grand Rapids Police about what trainings he underwent.
Yes.
Now, you didn't get into them at all in terms of you kind of pass those along. You didn't do any analysis of them. That was not your role at this point in time.
No, it wasn't.
You just see them and pass them along for other people to look at.
Correct.
Now, one of the other things, did you also get a video as well?
I did.
What was that video for?
It was a graduation video from the police academy for Officer Schurr.
And you had an opportunity to look at that?
I did.
And did that show the officer getting tased as part of the academy training?
It did.
And so that was kind of important, so you asked that to be passed along as well.
Correct.
And now that is exhibit, I believe, entered into exhibit 12, Your Honor, with the one of the stipulations.
Yes, 12 is already admitted.
I would only note on that, I think there was some suggestion by the defense that there should be some redactions on that. So, could we just approach for a moment?
So just for clarification, exhibit 12 is the graduation video, but it's not the full video. It's a longer video, but it's been edited and.
I haven't seen the whole edited version of it. I've seen the complete video that I obtained.
But this clearly is not. You've seen part of this, and there's edited that are part of this, but we're not with the full video.
Correct.
Move it to play exhibit 12, Your Honor.
Just for clarification, when you say it's not the entire video, you mean the entire video of the graduation with all participants?
Correct.
It's just narrowed down?
It's just narrowed down to focus on where we can find where the defendant was involved.
Okay. And you want to play that?
Correct.
Published exhibit 12, okay. You may proceed with that.
Just to be clear, the music was part of the video that you got. We didn't use add that or anything like that.
Definitely not.
That was a video that, music came on that original video.
Correct.
I have nothing for you, Your Honor.
Mr. Dodge?
Good afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon.
Excuse me one moment here. So, Detective, you mentioned that there initially was going to be a request for fingerprints and DNA to be conducted on this taser here, correct?
Correct.
But that request was ultimately canceled?
Yes.
And because from the video, it was apparent that Mr. Lyoya had possessed the taser, is
Yes.
that correct? And just in regards to a taser device here, do you carry a taser at times with you on duty?
I do not.
You ever?
Not anymore.
Okay. But when you did, does the taser that you would carry have some differences? I just approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes, you
There's some differences to this exhibit taser. Is that fair to say? As far as battery and cartridges?
may. Which exhibit is that for the record?
Push what exhibit is the demonstration, exhibit 23. I'll put a sticker on here, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Different from the taser that I used to carry, or different from the taser that was used in this incident?
Different from the taser used in this incident.
This is it. That one doesn't have the battery in it, doesn't have cartridges in it.
Okay. Do you know why the taser we're using in court today does not have those functions?
For safety purposes.
Okay. Now, you've been a police officer for how long here in the state of Michigan?
12 and a half years.
And under Michigan law, it's a felony to even possess a taser or similar electric weapon without certain licensing. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
To actually even just possess a taser, just to, I think I'm safe holding it in court here, but if I don't have a CPL, if I don't have specific taser training, I can't even touch a taser under Michigan law, correct?
Correct. There are very few exceptions.
It's even more restrictive than a lot of firearms possession laws. Is that fair to say?
I'd have to weigh them in specific instances. Some parts are, some parts aren't, maybe.
Okay. So if I went outside of this courtroom, if I don't have a CPL, I don't have taser, proper taser training, I cannot possess a taser.
Correct.
When Mr. Lyoya possessed this taser, that was a felony violation, correct?
Yes, it would be.
Based on your investigation into Mr. Lyoya's background and whether he had a CPL?
Correct.
Now, I just want to go through some of the exhibits with you. From the workup of the scene here, Detective Tubergen, you responded to the scene of this incident sometime soon after, is that right?
Yes.
Approximately how long after that you responded?
I may have been on scene an hour and a half after it occurred, give or take.
Okay. And did you have the opportunity to, I think you've already talked, you admitted some photos, to see the Nissan vehicle where it was at the time this incident happened?
Yes, I did.
And then after, sometime later, does the vehicle get taken elsewhere?
Yes, it was towed to our 6th District headquarters at MSP.
Now, did you yourself or other MSP personnel take photographs of the Nissan both at the scene there and then also back at one of the MSP facilities?
Yes, we did.
Sir, could I just, Your Honor, could I just approach the witness with some defendant's proposed exhibits?
Okay, you can state which ones they are for the record, like the.
I have defendant exhibit L1, L2, L20, and L15. Now, the parties have stipulated to these exhibits, do those appear to portray the vehicle at the scene or at the MSP facility soon thereafter?
Yes, they do.
And does that depict some of the contents within the Nissan?
Yes.
If I could just approach a few additional pictures. Defendant's exhibit L5, L6, L7, L12, and L13. What do those photos show, depict?
Deployed taser probes.
And does it also include some of the taser wires connected to the probes?
Yes, it does.
And were the probes and the wires, and we're going to get into this more with a taser expert, but were those found right around the body of Mr. Lyoya, right in the vicinity where the shooting took place?
Yes, they were.
And those were photographed by MSP personnel?
Correct.
Now, During the stop, as we watch it on video here, Officer Schurr's stop, at some point Officer Schurr asked the driver for a driver's license. Do you recall that?
I do.
And is that common during a traffic stop that police ask for a driver's license?
Yes, yes.
Is a driver in the state of Michigan required to have a valid driver's license upon them?
Yes.
And when Officer Schurr asks Mr. Lyoya for his license, does he immediately pat at a pocket?
I believe he pats his pockets, yes.
And as a police officer, does that normally indicate that they might be reaching for their license or reaching for their wallet?
Could be.
And did Mr. Lyoya, was you ever able to pull out a wallet or furnish a license to Officer Schurr?
No.
Now, if I could just approach with Defendant's Exhibit L9. Was Mr. Lyoya's wallet found at the scene?
Yes, it was.
And was it located on or immediately near his person?
Yes, it was.
And after that wallet, I presume that that wallet was taken into evidence by MSP?
Yes, it was.
And did you go through the content of the wallet?
Yes, I did.
Did you ever find a driver's license in the wallet?
Yes, I did.
For Mr. Lyoya?
No, I did not.
Now, if I could also approach Defendant's Exhibit L10 and L11. And do you recall what those depict?
Yes, this is a car key to the Nissan.
And was the car key also located immediately near Mr. Lyoya's person?
Yes, it was.
Now, Detective Tubergen, as part of your investigation, did you go out and interview some of the persons that were with Mr. Lyoya earlier that morning?
I attempted to. I also assigned some of my peers to attempt some interviews as well.
And was that relevant to try to understand what Mr. Lyoya may have been doing that morning?
I believe so.
And could that have potentially shed some light on Mr. Lyoya's actions that morning?
Potentially could.
Did you also look into Mr. Lyoya's just his general history?
I did.
And driver's history?
I did.
And did you do a really thorough workup on Mr. Lyoya and his background?
I believe I did.
Now, from your observations of the video, did Officer Schurr give Mr. Lyoya several police commands?
Yes, he did.
And did Mr. Lyoya fail to follow those commands?
Yes, he did.
And did Mr. Lyoya resist arrest?
Yes.
And did Mr. Lyoya shove or push at Officer Schurr at times?
It appears so.
And are all of those felony law violations under Michigan law?
Yes.
Just one moment, sir. We would move to admit the exhibits referenced. That would be L1, L2, L5, 6, and 7, L9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, and L20.
Those are the ones you just showed me before?
Yeah.
Okay. No
admitted at this time.
That's all the questions I have right now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, are there any other questions?
No follow-up, Your Honor.
And I don't see any hands raised on the jury. May this witness be excused, even though he's just gonna go to the jury.
You may, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. You may step down.
Thank you. Quite a pile up there.
Call Dr. Stephen Cole.
Hello.
Hi.
And before you take your seat, you can raise your right hand. My clerk will swear you.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Yes, Stephen with a PH, Cole, C-O-H-L-E.
Could you tell the jury what you do for a living?
Yes, I'm a forensic pathologist.
And what is a forensic pathologist?
Well, a forensic pathologist is a physician who specializes in the investigation of sudden and unexpected deaths and violent deaths. Those are the main categories. And we do so by obtaining information, if it's available, about how the death occurred and where and so on, circumstances of death. The second thing is we examine the individual externally and look for a number of things, including injury, height, weight, and various physical features. The next thing we do is we do laboratory testing, which can include x-rays if needed. And finally, when we have all of the information back and we have completed our report, we certify the death as to the cause and manner of death. And sometimes there are other questions that may come up that we also try to make observations about that may be relevant to the death.
Could you give the jury a little bit of your educational background? How do you become a forensic pathologist?
Well, first you have to go to medical school. So I attended medical school at the University of Missouri at Columbia and graduated there. I then trained for 4 years in pathology at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas. For the year after that, I trained in forensic pathology at the Institute of Forensic Sciences in Dallas. And following that training, I was hired to come work here in Grand Rapids, and I've been here ever since.
And ever since, how long have you been here?
Since 1982.
So since 1982, I mean, once you graduated school and get your forensic pathology, things have changed, I would imagine, in the field. Do you do anything to stay up to date, to stay current on developments in the field of forensic pathology?
Well, yes. I attend usually 2 to 3, mostly 3 meetings a year that are involved in pathology, or that the meetings are about pathology. Usually a couple of national meetings occasionally, and international meeting. And we also have a state meeting, State Medical Examiner Association meeting here in Michigan.
In addition to that, do you take part in educating other pathologists or helping out those who are maybe looking to get in the field?
Well, yes. We, at our morgue here in Grand Rapids, I work out of Blodgett. We accept medical students. In fact, we have 2 currently that are allowed to come into our office and observe. If it weren't crowded today, I would have brought them to court, because that's part of the deal, is showing them how the system works and how our autopsies fit into the prosecution of cases and so on. I've also lectured from time to time at state and national and occasionally international meetings.
Now, in terms of being here since 1982, can you give the jury an idea of how many cases have you handled? I mean, I guess per year, give us a ballpark idea.
Well, I'd say probably total about 10,000. It's usually been about 200 to 250 cases a year, sometimes a few more.
Now, when you say cases a year, those are 250 autopsies you were performing on a body.
Yes, autopsies.
Now, are you only for Kent County?
Well, I'm the chief medical examiner for Kent County, and in that regard, we do all of the autopsies, the forensic autopsies that occur in Kent County. We do them at Blodgett. There are two of us. I have a deputy chief medical examiner. We also do autopsies for other counties if they choose to use our services. That can include Ottawa. I think we have probably 9 or 10 other counties up to the UP. We do Sault Ste. Marie, Mackinac County, Emmett County, and a bunch of other smaller counties in northern Michigan, and we do Branch County in southern Michigan.
So in terms of doing all these autopsies, I'm assuming you've been qualified and expert in the field of forensic pathology before?
Yes.
Can you give the jury an idea how many times you've been qualified as an expert?
I would say probably 600 times.
And is that just in Kent County, or is that in other places as well?
Well, other places as well, mostly in Michigan, but a few other states.
Okay, so you've actually gone out of state and testified for
Yes.
cases. At this point in time, I'd like to enter his testimony as an expert in the field of forensic pathology. No objection?
Right, and Dr. Cole shall be considered an expert in that field.
Doctor, you had the opportunity to perform an autopsy on Patrick Lyoya.
Yes.
Could you tell the jury when this took place and where it took place?
Yes, the autopsy took place on April 4th of 2022, and it occurred at the morgue at Blodgett.
Could you give them a little bit of an idea of, in this case, what do you do when you start an autopsy? What process?
What we do, the first thing, as I mentioned a little earlier, is try to get information as to how the death occurred. Now, in Kent County, one of our sources of information, probably the primary one, is we have 8 investigators who work for our office, and when there is a death that's reportable to the medical examiner, again, usually violent deaths, sudden unexpected deaths, apparent drug overdoses, babies with unsafe sleeping, and so on. Whoever's in charge of the deceased person when they're pronounced dead has the obligation to call our office. Usually this is, if they're dead out in the field, it may be paramedics, it may be police. If they make it to the hospital, it's usually going to be an ER doctor or nurse. And so they will call our office. One of our investigators will respond, and depending on the situation, if there is a scene, as in this case there was, Mr. Lyoya was still at the scene. So they will usually respond to the scene, talk to the police, make their own observations, take photographs, and will produce a report that I use, at least mostly I use. I may have other sources as well. The police who are doing the investigation sometimes come in to observe the autopsy, and but mainly it's through our investigator. I'll get information as to how the death occurred, what are the circumstances, so it'll give me an idea of what to consider when I'm doing the autopsy.
Now, you have this report. I'm assuming at some point in time the body is actually delivered to you. What steps do you take when you actually have the body to start performing the autopsy?
Well, when the body arrives, the body is almost always bagged, put in a body bag, in other words, prior to transport. The body is put on an autopsy table. It's photographed as it is in the condition in which we received it. We then inventory clothing and jewelry. We then remove that and clean the body up if there is blood or vomit or other material on the body. We'll clean the body up and rephotograph it. And then in that second phase, if there are injuries that are, or other markings, but oftentimes it's injuries, that are relevant, we will make sure we get a good photograph of those injuries. If someone, for example, is shot in the head, we'll shave around the injury so we can get a good photograph, so that not only I, for future reference, but anybody else reviewing the autopsy can have material to review and give an opinion.
So in terms of that, when you did specifically with Patrick, this autopsy, did you notice any injuries or something? Did anything jump out at you when you performed your initial overview of the body?
Well, the main finding was that he had a gunshot wound in the back of the head.
So did you shave it as you shave his head to get a better look?
Yes, around the wound, usually for a diameter of several inches.
Why is it? Why do you have to shave? Why do you have to
Well,
shave it? What's the purpose of that?
if a person is shot in a hair-bearing area, then the hair can obscure the characteristics of the wound. And, for example, when a gun is fired, besides the bullet coming out the muzzle, there will be soot and partly burned and unburned grains of gunpowder that are blown out of the weapon, of the muzzle. So we want to see if this gunshot residue is present, because it can give us some assistance as to the range of fire. So we want to shave all the hair from around the wound so we can identify such gunshot residue if present.
Now, when you're doing your autopsy, you at this point in time have no access to any videos, anything of the incident. You just had the report. They don't give you a video of what occurred. You're just basing it on your report and what you find on the body.
Yes, at the time of the autopsy, there may be reasons later on to review relevant videos, but on the day of the autopsy, we concern ourselves with what we see on the body.
Okay. The record showing opposing counsel exhibit 35, that you're providing a copy. Doctor, kind of doing this newfangled way instead of printing it out. We're going to show you what has been marked as exhibit for People's 35. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What do you recognize that as?
Well, that is the back of Mr. Lyoya's head, and it shows a gunshot wound entering pretty much in the midline of the back of the head, and then we have shaved the hair around it in order to elucidate the features of the wound.
So this would be an accurate picture of the wound as you saw it as the day you performed the autopsy?
Yes.
I'd move for the admission of exhibit 35, Your Honor.
Objection. 35 is not admitted.
Turn off the lights and publish it, Your Honor. I think there's a laser pointer. Found it? Could you tell the jury what we're looking at here for the record?
Well, this is exhibit, I believe you said 35. This is the back of Mr. Lyoya's head. Of course, here in the middle of the shaved area of the scalp is the gunshot wound. And then we have, again, shaved the hair from around the wound.
Now, in terms of when you look in the wound, you talk about looking for gunpowder. Did you find any gunpowder? What were the results when you start looking?
Well, usually what would happen if there's gunpowder, the weapon is not going to be in tight contact with the skin or the body. It's got to be at least a fraction of an inch, often 1 or several inches away, usually, depending on the weapon, up to 3 or 4 feet. So we're looking really, what's most important is we identify the wound, and then we're looking at the skin around the wound. In this case, I did not see any gunpowder surrounding this wound.
Now, do you do a microscope when you say when you look at the skin around it, you're talking about the shaved area, if you will?
Yes.
Okay, so you never saw any gunpowder there?
Correct.
What does that indicate to you?
Well, it indicates generally one of two things, but it can get a bit complicated. It indicates either the wound is a distant wound, which would be greater than, say, 3 or 4 feet. That is, the muzzle to the person is greater than 3 or 4 feet. It can also mean it's a contact wound in which the muzzle is up against the head such that the gunshot residue is blown into the wound rather than being deposited around the wound.
So based on in your opinion, when you have the wound like this and no gunshot residue, what do you surmise from that?
Well, again, it could be, and I think it probably is a contact wound. Often when a firearm is tied up against the body when it's fired, besides the bullet and the powder and the soot, which has blown out the muzzle. There's also going to be gas from the burned gunpowder. And that may split and tear the skin around the entry wound. That did not happen in this case, just doesn't always happen. But so again, if I were, another thing I wanted to add, when you're talking about range of fire and looking for the gunshot residue, if an item, piece of clothing, can be a lot of things, but if something is interposed between the weapon and the person's body, even if the weapon is almost touching the body, that intermediary object can filter out gunshot residue. So that's just another consideration. We try not to be absolute in forensic pathology because there can be exceptions to the general rule.
So you didn't see any clothing or anything else in the wound here?
I did not. He was wearing kind of a loosely knit, I think it was a green sweater that did have a collared area on it. I don't want to get too much into the weeds here unless you or the defense has questions, but he was wearing that bit of clothing, and hypothetically, that may have, if interposed between the weapon and his head, could have filtered out some of this residue. I did not identify a hole, although it was loosely woven, but at the time of the autopsy, I didn't identify a hole. When I reviewed scene photographs, there was a possible defect in the back collar area, but I can't say for sure if that was, if that was made by the bullet or was already there.
All right, thank you. You guys want to turn that off now? So in terms of, you see that, do you do anything else? I mean, you see, okay, there's a gunshot wound in the back of the head. Are you done then?
Well, we continue with the autopsy. The question is several. One of them is, one of the issues that we have to do is recover the bullet if it's still in them. Now, we take an X-ray, and that's, and we examine the body. So between those two, we can usually figure out if there's a bullet still in the person. In this case, there was no exit wound, and an X-ray did indeed show a bullet that had exited from the skull but lodged beneath the scalp on the right, approximately where I'm pointing to myself.
And you retrieved that bullet?
Yes.
Now, even though you got this gunshot wound in the head, do you still look at the rest of the body?
Yes, we always do a complete autopsy, just to see if there's anything else that could have contributed to the death, or even sometimes there are fringe benefits to the family if we find a disease of the type that can be inherited, such as coronary artery atherosclerosis.